Good morning. Today I'm working on a Porsche 928 1980. One of the issues I found is in this task is just removing the crank pulley timing gear, and it's completely stuck on the shaft. One of the things I realized in trying to get the puller tool behind the sprocket is that there's a little ridge right here, and that ridge doesn't make it possible for me to get there. So I'm going to get this hot with a torch and melt the plastic back to enable me to get the proper grab I need. Okay, so now the puller will hook onto the sprocket. Get the angle right here. Show that this is going to be successful. I have good confidence this will work. As I tighten this up, you can see the sprocket coming off very, very nicely. Getting further down into the Porsche timing belt change, here's the camshaft. The sprockets are just off, and wow, that woodruff key is loose. Good to note. I'll tuck that away so I don't lose it here. The washer comes off, but you have to hold the washer while you remove the bolt. So this is here's the camshaft washer and bolt assembly. The washer is very specific. It's concave on one side, convex on the other. The concave side needs to go towards the camshaft sprocket. Again, put a backup wrench on that when you install it. Camshaft sprockets look identical, but I marked the right-hand one with a red marker. Looks like we have some oil leaking from this camshaft sprocket. Now the oil pump. It's really hard to tell. I wiped some of this up, but there was so much goo all over, I couldn't tell where the leaks were coming from. I do plan on replacing the main crankshaft seal. And this is a good angle actually. You can see the oil coming from this one bolt. This one requires Loctite 542 or 572. One of the challenging aspects of the oil pump is this seal. Getting this seal to go over top of this lip on the shaft was fairly difficult. Or you're supposed to use a special tool by Porsche, but instead what I did is I use a pick very carefully, obviously. Put it on the edge of this. So I put the pick right on the edge of this and then pushed the seal over it and added a little bit of pressure with my fingers. I'm not going to demo it because I already got it on and I don't want to redo it, but using this pick very carefully, I was able to just move it over. And this isn't actually a super sharp tip. It's sharp and it would cut, it would puncture, but not. The very tip of it is rounded, so it's not as likely to cut. And that's how I got the oil pump lip seal on. I noticed in the notes that the water pump, this inner ring, has a chamfered edge here, and a sharp edge on this side, and in the notes it says to put the chamfered edge towards the house body. So another way to look at that is there's a little dot on it right here, and that dot can be facing out on both of these and you'll be set. Just reinstalled the thermostat on the Porsche 928 and the oil pump. So 3 bolts on the oil pump. May come out pretty easily, we'll see. Oh yeah, look at that. Okay, just about on. So I put oil, make sure it oiled right here. Oiled the lip seal, the back of it. I got it most of the way and even by hand. Now I'll use a dead blow hammer. Right on the edge, not in the middle. So you don't want to wail on it. Light taps, lots of oil, and this one pushes in very easily. Next up is the water pump. The water pump surface is large. Every little bit of that needs to be smooth with no old sealant or seal on it. I'm gonna go and hit it with some Scotch-Brite and try to clean that up a little bit more. But I use a razor blade very carefully because it's aluminum. You can't make a single scratch in it. So what I use is a razor blade. Tipped it so it's very flat like that. Never like this. Very flat. And I got under some of the old gasket and peeled it up. So I just use it to kind of get the edge of the old gasket. And now I'll use some Scotch-Brite by hand and clean it up a little bit more. Okay, with the mating surface is really clean on the water pump. You can see that I put a continuous bead of sealant around the edge and make sure it's on the inside of the bolts in this case, and that bead has to be continuous, no breaks. There's no breaks. A continuous bead of sealant the whole way around. And then I can put the gasket on and the water pump on. The water pump itself also gets a very thin bead of sealant going all the way around so that the water chambers are kept separate from the outside. The sealant that is used is this gasket maker's for water pump and thermostat housing, a specialized formula. And then the gasket goes on, like that. There you go. Set the gasket on there. Sealant should keep it in place, more or less. Okay, now the water pump will go onto the vehicle. I think there's some pins that line this up, so I need to find those and get those lined up. Looking at the thickness of the material in the water pump, you can see the ones that are inset, like that one there, are the material thickness is thinner than the ones on the edge, like that one there. So the shorter ones go where the material thickness is thinner, and the longer ones go on the edge. On the water pump, don't forget to leave this bolt out as the cover goes into that one. Okay, in this case I'm going to start by running all the bolts in by hand, and then I'll go around and do it all with a wrench. First by hand, then with a wrench. Once they're finger tight, then starting from the center, working the way out. Check this one, keep the cross pattern going. This one, go back through. Kind of a final check on that. And I'll just go around once, finish the cross. Alright, it's a little bit random, and it's hard to tell whether I got all of them, so I'll do a final time around where I'm going to go all the way around, get all the bolts in a more thorough pattern. Yep, missed this one. That's why you do it. All the way around. In this case, I just checked all the perimeter ones first because it's easier. Check the center ones. Okay. Now we should know that they're all tight. You can see how many times I end up touching each bolt just to make sure that it's set. Next step for me was installing the camshaft seals here. There's a O-ring inside here, an O-ring on the back of this, a seal here, and a plug seal on the back. So it's 4 seals in order to, and you have to take these 3 bolts out, pull this off carefully and evenly, replace 4 seals, put it back on. Putting it back on, I use lots of oil on the shaft, lots of oil on the back where the O-ring was, so and you want to make sure the O-rings are going on smoothly. And then I'm using bolts to draw it in very, very carefully. There, that's how I drew it in. I drew it in with the slightly longer bolts that belong on the left-hand side. Now I'll remove these bolts and install the shorter ones and do the same on the left-hand side. Okay, so now we're just putting on the plate here. 2 little hex head, number 4 hex. Don't forget the little grounding strap on the top one. And the bottom one you can reach by going over the top of the valve cover. Left-hand camshaft is a little more complex. What we have is, the reason it's more complex is because there's gears that need to be lined up for the distributor. So again, on the left-hand side, draw it down a little by little. Make sure the woodruff key is already installed on the interior woodruff key. And install this, and then after that put the gears on. The way the gears go on is you have this chamfered washer, and it goes with the chamfer outwards. So the flat part will go up against the engine, the chamfer goes up against the next gear. The distributor gear, make sure you keep the orientation. Now it may not matter, but I made sure that I knew which side was facing out, which side was facing back towards the engine, and so I can install it back exactly how I got it out. And those gears slide on there really nicely. Carrier can go on. Make sure the O-ring in the middle is lubricated well. Carrier's on. And then lastly, the lip seal can very carefully be installed over the carrier. Okay. Okay, I'm ready for the installation of the tensioner for the timing belt. This guy goes here, attached by 4 bolts. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. In this case, the 4th one goes into the water jacket. So this bolt here must be installed Loctite. Make sure that procedures to refill this with oil is highlighted in the write-up by it's highlighted in the write-up by Wally Plumley. Okay, this is highlighting the importance of being organized when removing the bolts. So in this case, I drew a little design that somewhat matches this shape, and it shows where the bolts go. The reason is because all 4 of these are slightly different length. I guess these 2 are the same, these 2 are different lengths, and so there's 3 different lengths. And this length that goes through the water jacket is obviously the most critical. Quick tip for torquing these, because they're going into aluminum and these aren't tremendously large bolts, I grab the socket like this, hold it here so I don't over torque these and strip out the aluminum. Okay, so I'm going down to about from 18 to 20 foot-pounds on these. The replacement of the tensioner pulley really warrants a little bit of closer examination. The pulley sits here. It's a press fit into that recess on the tensioner pulley arm. It's in there with a lot of force, and so it needs to be hit out with a punch. In this case, I used a 4-pound sledgehammer, a couple of tools, PB blaster, and a torch, and just very carefully heated this up without damaging the rubber seal on the original bearing. Again, the bearings were good on this, and so I could have reused this one even though it's dirty. However, much prefer to put the new one on. The setup on the vise is securing the vise here with a block of wood at this angle. Okay, and then this snap ring will have to be transferred to the new pulley, which has a groove but no snap ring on it. Once the snap ring is on, you need to make sure it's on the groove because it's easy to miss the groove like I did on this one. So in this case, you need to double inspect that, make sure it's fully on. There we go. And then a quick inspection. Make sure the snap ring is engaged all the way around. Another way to check it is by spinning the snap ring on the groove, because if it's crooked it won't spin easily. If it's installed correctly, it will spin easily. Usually. To finish the job, use the bolt and the nut to draw up the snap ring right up to the groove or the edge of the boss. Okay, so I'm staying consistent. It was 20 foot-pounds, 20 foot-pounds. None of these are going to be subject to a twisting force attempting to remove the bolt. This one has a nut on the back, and this bearing actually goes on it goes onto a I guess it's a boss on the timing or the water pump housing, and so it isn't actually onto the bolt shank. It's not going to try to back this bolt out. 20 foot-pounds felt like about as far as I want to go with the aluminum. It'd probably be fine going less, 18 foot-pounds on all of these. The crankshaft timing belt pulley goes on after this washer goes on. This large washer, make sure that the here you can see it. It's curved, so there's a curved face on it. You want to make sure that the curved face goes back away from the timing belt, or else it could cut the timing belt as it spins. It goes on. Doesn't seem to be an orientation to this. This pulley just goes on to the woodruff key. There you go. Tap on the oil pump pulley. Maybe get a little socket on that. There you go. There's 3 washers. There's a main washer, again, a little bit of a curve to it, curved towards the pulley, not away from, and then a thin washer. That will need to be torqued down. Okay, torqued to 47 foot-pounds. The camshaft bolts go on, and then this needs a backup wrench. So you have to have a backup wrench on that washer. 47 foot-pounds. Now, that washer has to be facing with the convex side outwards or the concave side inwards, you should be able to see the mark of the pulley on the back side of it if it was from when you removed it. On the oil pump, I torqued that to 25 foot-pounds. Okay, installing the timing belt, I had to remove this bolt, remove the arm, the tensioner pulley arm, and then install the belt, thread it through behind this pulley here. The tensioner, automatic tensioner adjuster pin has to engage in a little groove or a little divot in the arm here, and so make sure that is set correctly. Both of these pulleys, the manual does say to make sure there's no catching at all, that they're very smooth and they spin freely and smoothly, so make sure you check that. And of course, just check all of the pulleys prior to installation, all the pulleys you can. The water pump is catching on the belt a little bit, but I spun it earlier and made sure that it was moving freely. So 1, 2, 3, 4 pulleys that you can spin. Make sure they're spinning freely, no catches, and I'll double check the timing belt routing here. So the crank pulley setup is, we have one of these washers on the back side of the timing belt. Again, the curved side is towards the belt on both these. So the back one has the curved side like this, and this one puts the curved side up against the belt here. That keeps the belt in the track safely. Next goes on put this on, it should line up with top dead center. Very nice, okay. And now we can do the timing, now we can set up the timing belt on the rest of the camshafts. For adjusting the timing, you start at the crankshaft, make sure that the belt is on the crankshaft, move it up to the left-hand camshaft. When the crankshaft moves, it's going to move in a clockwise direction looking from this point, so that the tension run goes from the crankshaft to the left-hand camshaft and then down to the water pump and then to the right-hand camshaft. Okay, and you can see that we are half a tooth backwards from being exactly on line, on center, but there's a little bit of slack here. So when the engine's moving and the crankshaft spins, once this slack is pulled out, then the camshaft will rotate that half a tooth and be exactly on time with no slack. But right now there's just a little bit of slack. If I had it the other way, where the camshaft was forward half a tooth, so one tooth the other direction, then once the slack is removed, the camshaft would move forward a full tooth. Right now being counterclockwise one tooth, when the slack is removed with the engine running, it'll be right on time. We're going to do the same to this other side, preferably so both camshafts are lined up half a tooth this way from where they need to be. Start by pulling the slack out there, come around to this camshaft, and this one needs to be lined up, or work on lining that up. There you go. This one actually might. Okay, there's half a tooth, and that lines up. Okay, so that's where I want it. Go and just clip it there, and now I have to work on the tensioner to back the tension off in order to be able to get this all the way on the gear. I have too much tension on it right now. So I backed out the adjustment nut until it started getting a little wobbly. Well, it's not too wobbly yet, but okay, I went out that far. You can see how far that is. Pulled slack on the tensioner pulley, and then the timing belt, I actually removed a little bit on the top here to get it more on the edge, and just worked on getting the edge in all the way around. So just got starting from here, going all the way around, just trying to get the very edge started. And once that's started, then it'll just slide on. That off. Try to get it more or less in the center of the pulley. Okay, now double check my timing marks. Okay, this isn't optimal. I'm about 5 degrees before top dead center. So there's 0 or top. I don't know why it locked in there with a special tool I bought, but that's where it locked in. So it's locked with a special tool on the back side. This isn't going to move right now. So keeping that in mind, this isn't the best, but this isn't the final check. So 5 degrees before top dead center. Timing belt is reasonably firm. Moving up to this one. Pull the clip off. Left hand camshaft, you can see right there oh, you can't hardly see it. There we go. Okay, so there's the timing mark. The exact on timing. If we advance just a little bit, it'll be exactly on. That might compensate for some slack and hopefully the 5 degrees here. And quite importantly, the right hand, boy, that is hard to see. That is the tooth right there. It needs to be advanced as well. So we're all in the correct direction. I'm not sure if I'm 1 tooth off or not yet. What I'll do is remove the tool so I can advance this to exactly 0 and see where my camshafts are. And from there I'll know for sure. Before doing a final timing belt check, we're going to install this keeper timing belt. There's the washer and the snap ring on top of the stud, and that's the keeper unit for the timing belt. Double checking my timing marks now. I've removed the special tool, set the crankshaft right at 0 degrees or top. The left hand camshaft has now moved to almost exactly, about as close as I could get. So that is less than a 1/4 tooth, which means I can't move the teeth in either direction and get closer. And the right hand one is the same as the left hand, within a 1/4 tooth. It's hard to see with this setup. Excellent. There. So these are, if I were to adjust these in either direction, it would be further off than it is now. It is exactly on time. Before doing tension, I advanced the crankshaft 2 turns, came back to 0 degrees, double check my timing marks. Here's the left hand side, came spot on. Double check the right hand side in the mirror. Again, it improved actually a little bit. So now let's double check tension and see where we're at. Okay, ignore the oil dipstick. But here's the fancy tension gauge, coming up to 90. You can see I'm already passing the slot here. So I am a little bit too tight. I'll back the tension off till that's just right, and I think that'll align our right hand camshaft better. Okay, adjusted the tension, so this is on the tight side of the groove. See the groove right here, and that's just on the tight side of it. So I'm going to rotate the crankshaft now 2 more rotations, double check tension, see where we're at. Okay, after these 2 rotations, the tension is just on the top end of that window, which is nice. I like it there because I know this belt will slacken up a little bit in the first 200 hours of service. So the tension is good. All the timing marks line up just like we had before. So now it's just torque the main crankshaft bolt. Yeah, put it back together. Actually, before I torque the crankshaft bolt, I need to put the cover behind that. So I need to disassemble this whole thing, put the cover behind it, and then torque it on. This point right here is a really good point to stop, take a coffee break. Prior to going any further, what I'm going to do is take a break, come back as an inspector, double check everything I put on, all the torques on them, and then know for certain that it's good before putting the covers on and sealing it up. So all the QC done. I checked all the water pump bolts I could. Double checked the pulley. Well, I can't check the nut on the back of this pulley, but the tensioner arm bolt, water pump bolt, carefully so it doesn't slip on the belt. The attachment of the tensioner. And that's it. Just more of a memory, like, yes, I torqued this one. Yes, I torqued this one. I didn't double check the torques on those guys. On the water pump, don't forget to leave this bolt out as the cover goes into that one. And just by way of review, it's this bolt here and this bolt here, zoom in on those, that I use Loctite on. Those are the only two I use Loctite on in this application. So this top right hand corner, when facing it, of the tensioner assembly and the tensioner arm, I use Loctite on both of those. The rest I just were clean, dry threads. QC done, covers back in place. Ready to install this main crankshaft balancer bolt, and I think it's 200 and some odd foot-pounds. In order to do that properly, you need to install the special tool into this recess, goes onto the starter ring gear, and will hold the engine steady while I torque it. So this tool goes back in. One note about installing the special tool, there was a plate here that was very thin. The special tool is a little bit thicker. These bolts don't have a lot of engagement, so I would say torque on those is super light, just a little more than hand tight to hold this. It's just a shear load on the bolts. Once the covers are installed, I just set the distributor in here. Power steering pump and the alternator have a little bracket that attaches behind this hose, so it's easier to reach that now. 2 bolts there. And this oil hose goes next. Connects up there. This bracket and the arm that connects it. The belt for the alternator is installed. Okay, and ready for the radiator install and then the fan. I've installed the radiator now. That's these 2 hexes on the side. Make sure that the bumpers on the bottom is correctly installed so it's secure. The radiator has an upper hose, 2 hose clamps, make sure those are tight. Lower hose, 2 hose clamps. There is a upper transmission line and a lower transmission line. Make sure those are secured. Use a backup nut when tightening the B-nut. Put a backup nut on the line nut. There are 3 belts, so I kind of did a lot here as far as visually. It wasn't a lot of work, but it was a lot visually. Don't forget this little green connector on the back of the distributor. This hose here with the clamp here, that's for the oil. Coolant line here from the block to the heater core. The pink ribbons are because I didn't tighten this down. I'm waiting on some sealant. I put some sealant on this joint because it was a little bit rusted. Pink ribbon is on this belt. I haven't tightened this belt all the way down, and then the distributor isn't secure. 1828 foot-pounds on these. Tightened up the alternator, the power steering pump. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, underneath the car, looking at the power steering pump right here. I put a bar right between the bracket and the pump. Make sure the nut is nice and loosened up. Here's the nut right there. Loosen that up. Then between the bracket and the pump to tighten it up. Pull hard on the lever. Tighten up the belt. 13mm open end wrench. You're setting up the distributor. You can see here that the number 1 is approximately this hole here. This is the number 1 right here. Trace this wire back and goes through here, goes to here, and there's the number 1 cylinder right there. This distributor should be pointed in this location, I believe, and then button the lid on. Okay, and as a very last step, do a quality control check. To do a quality control check, take one system or one hose at a time. So if we start with the coolant system, for example, we could start with the installation of the radiator. Check this bolt. This isn't a torque check, this is just a visual of everything. This bolt can go under and under here. Check and make sure that the mountings are correct. So here, this mount is correctly in the aluminum grooves right there. This is the aluminum slot made right in this gap here. That's where the rubber mounting puck goes. Same thing over here. this rubber mounting puck nicely in the slot. Then we go to the hoses. So this is secure and it's adequately engaged. Then I go to the top. On the top we have the other end of that one hose we just looked at. This is secure, adequate engagement. Now look at the upper radiator hose. Secure, adequate engagement. And this last one, secure and with adequate engagement. Okay, still on the radiator we have the transmission line, so I'll go back underneath. See the way I'm going back and forth just to stay with the system? Go back and forth, stick with one system till it's done. This line is secured. We'll be leak checking all of these. And I secured that. This one's secured. Again, it's a visual. We've already done the torquing down. This is just a visual to make sure we didn't miss any, there's no loose ends here. Okay, so now the radiator installation is checked. Now I can check the belts. So checking the belt systems. The first one could be the main fan. That's 3 bolts. 1, 2. There's one under there. There's 3. Secured. Now we'll check the belt tension. Go back under here. This arm is the belt tensioner. That bolt is on. It's all the way, it's torqued down. Here's the tension system. We have our safety nut in place. Safety nut is right here. Oops. Right here's the safety nut. This nut is down. And the belt shows adequate tension. Here, let me try to get an angle on this. Belt shows adequate tension. I can twist it 90, but it takes a good bit of pressure. Can move on to the next, the power steering belt, or the start of the alternator. Good pressure. Alternator is secured, lock nut in place. And the upper bolt, it might be worth putting a wrench on that. I actually don't have a recollection of coming back. Oh, I can feel a gap. This is why we do this. So this upper bolt up here, you can see the gap there. I didn't tighten that one down, so cut one. Okay, moving on. The power steering pump, that bolt is tight. And I should probably check the pivot bolt on that as well. And the belt though, it's good and snug. Okay, and that's the belt system. Going back on top, it's worth mentioning that I found that this, I think I want to call it an Adele clamp, was loose. Was actually free. I hadn't tucked it into the nut here that holds the back of the housing of the dust cover for the timing belt. And so I had to remove this, install this properly, and then there's 2 ground wires there as well. Installed some zip ties to clean up the wires, tuck in the wires that would have gone to the air conditioning compressor, which is no longer installed. Both sides of the distributor are installed. Okay, what did I miss? I guess there's still these 2 bolts here, and that should complete the QC. Just have those 2 bolts, so I have the alternator and the power steering pump pivot bolt to check torque on. Okay, all the QC done. I'm just going to turn it over with the starter, and I don't have the distributor, the coil plugged in, so we're not going to get any spark. I'm not going to start it. Just turn it over kind of briefly. This is exciting, but it's also scary. Alright, sounded great. Here, everything moves very smoothly. Of course, I just moved it by hand. 3 or 4 revolutions, so I knew nothing was going to hit. It's still scary. Okay, now it's time to hook up the ignition and see if she'll fire. Okay, here's the moment we've been waiting for. I need to get some coolant in it. Oil's already double checked, that's set. We need to get some coolant in it and get the timing light set up and check the ignition timing, and then of course leak check everything at the end of that run. Good progress. There you can see the red marks should be lined up at the window. Wow, this does not like the strobe effect. Interesting. There you go, there's a red mark lined up the window. When you look at it with your eyes and not the camera, it is really steady. So idle. See what kind of RPM we're running. Oh, it's a little high still. It'll come down as it warms up. Well, that's what you should be looking at. That's your timing mark.